This podcast replay is brought to you by Pallet Rack City, 305-887-9212. It's your one-stop shop for all your warehouse needs. They buy and sell new and used pallet racking, largest used racking inventory in South Florida. You want a great rack? Go to Pallet Rack City, 305-887-9212.
All right, we are going to talk a little football right now. John Buhler does it writes NFL for Fansided, and you can follow him on Twitter at Buhler118. John, I would imagine that the Ferris Bueller jokes were like, I'm sure it still goes on, right? Is that what it is?
Pretty much every day since third grade, anytime I meet anybody new. But, I'm just glad the movie was a good movie.
Now, wait a minute. Let me ask you something. How old are you?
I'm 30.
Okay, so I'm glad that you're young. Did you know about the movie and the scene before somebody brought it up, or did somebody bring it up and then that made you go look at Ferris Bueller?
I think the first time I heard it, I was probably in like second grade, but because it was starting to come up more and more often, my dad's like, look, John, you probably need to watch this movie. I know it's PG-13. You're only like 10, but like, just get ready for it. And, I still say I probably watch it at least once a year.
Of course.
Keep up with all the references. I'm sure I know all of them, but by this point,
yeah.
Why would I not?
Yeah. And you probably picked up a couple tips on things to do in school and how to skip and those kind of things, right? I mean, that was the main thing about that movie. Perfect tips on how to get out of school.
Yeah, I can't always say that I was successful in that, but we just want to try to be as cool as Ferris Bueller was. Just still trying to this day, but here we are.
I got you. All right, John. What'd you think yesterday of Bill O'Brien, my brother? Because I didn't really have a problem with the field goal. In fact, I thought that was the right move. It would have been more of a panic move, I thought, if you were going to go for it there. But the fake punt for me was unacceptable, and that turned everything around. What are your thoughts on that?
I'm right there with you, man. I totally get kicking the field goal there. I mean, it's a chip shot for Fairburn. You go up 24-0. You got to feel really good about where you're at in that game. Kansas City has a history of choking at Arrowhead, and you've got full control there. Midway through the second quarter, but going for it on 4th and 4 from your own 31 that is beyond embarrassing, and that's why he's Bill O'Brien. This is the Texans for you in a nutshell. And I'm like, you just gave all the momentum back to Kansas City, and they never let it go. They scored 41 unanswered points,
and I got
it was unbelievable.
And John, I'm sorry there, but for me, when you, I know he's done a good job overall. He hasn't done a bad job, but to me, that's a fireable moment right there. If I'm the owner, I have just lost it right there. You're up 24-0, and you end up getting routed by 20, and you make that decision. That's the part that really drives me crazy. That they, if I'm the owner, I'd be freaking out on O'Brien.
Absolutely. In the past, I have, given Bill O'Brien, credit. I mean, he's won the division 4 out of 6 years he's been there. You can consistently go 9-7, 10-6. And if you get a good matchup in the wild card round, you can play in the divisional round. But at this time, Houston is the only franchise in football that has not played in a conference championship game. Granted, it's only 18 years old, but this was the opportunity. And at that point, you would have hosted the Titans. You might have won that. You could potentially be going to a Super Bowl. But the ownership's got to look at the situation and realize that they got to make a change. I mean, I can't reasonably expect Romeo Crennel being back next year. I mean, he is in his early 70s. He's had a great career as an NFL head coach. Texans don't have a general manager. And it was just shameful to just see the Texans fall apart like that. I mean, I really could not believe what I was watching yesterday afternoon.
Yeah, and on the flip side, watching Mahomes is just, it's magical, man. to watch the way that kid can throw the ball and all the arm angles and all of that. I mean, you watch him and how the master he is, and Rodgers and those kind of guys, and then the opposite is, Tannehill and Lamar and these kind of guys that have to feed off of the run in order for their passing game to work.
Yeah, it's I knew he had a lot of talent at Texas Tech. I mean, I think obviously having his baseball background and his dad being, a big league relief pitcher certainly helps. But nobody could have reasonably, expected this. I mean, I'm up in Chicago and people are still just like, can't believe that they passed on Mahomes for Mitch Trubisky. I mean, passing on Deshaun Watson was such a bad idea because, they played in the same conference in the ACC. But, what we saw out of Mahomes is like, this is why, he's going to be the face of the AFC for the next decade. I anticipate Kansas City winning probably a couple of Super Bowls during his prime. This might even be the year that it finally happens for KC.
Yeah.
This century.
It's impressive. All right, Seahawks and Packers. Wilson tried to make the magic happen, but it just was a little too late at that point. But hell of a game by the Packers, and I think something none of us expected to see the Packers in the NFC Championship game.
No, it was kind of strange seeing them get, the number 2 seed, with the first-year head coach in Matt LaFleur, who, I thought was a good coach when he was on, under Kyle Shanahan in Atlanta and, a couple other stops before. But, I wasn't overly impressed with LaFleur when he was with the Titans. I think Arthur Smith doing a better job this year than LaFleur did last. But, Green Bay is right there. They have an opportunity on Sunday to, avenge a really, like, their worst loss of the season. Are they the softest 13-3 team of all time? Maybe, but, this is Aaron Rodgers going up against a 49ers team that, is only like, this is like their first playoff game. They're coming off their first playoff win since 2013, I believe. So, it was tough to see, Russell Wilson just do everything he could to try to carry his team to the NFC Championship. But, Green Bay was healthier and they played a more complete game. So credit to the Packers here.
John Buhler, of course, from Fansided joining us. You can follow him on Twitter at Buhler118. Your thoughts on Tennessee and Baltimore? The Ravens could not work that running game the way they have all year long. Tennessee had the answer that most teams haven't been able to do in stopping them, and on the flip side, punishing them too with Derrick Henry. Your thoughts on that one?
I had a sneaking suspicion entering that game that Tennessee could upset Baltimore. Baltimore resting players in Week 17 versus Pittsburgh. They're riding a 12-game winning streak. The Baltimore Orioles had lost more recently than the Ravens. But, Tennessee was playing with a ton of momentum. They've been playing essentially a playoff game, since November. And they just went in there and they just out-bullied the Ravens. And the Ravens and Titans have played a bunch of very interesting games in the AFC playoffs this century. And, I think back in 2008, Baltimore beat Tennessee when they were the 1 seed, and then they kind of returned the favor. But Tennessee's it's fun, watching Derrick Henry, hit his prime. The Titans are actually kind of a fun, interesting watch. But I think more importantly than anything, Mike Vrabel's got something pretty good cooking up there in Nashville, and I'm anxious to see how they play against Kansas City next week.
I'm looking forward to that. Now, let me ask you something. Where do you stand? Because, all right, this show originates out of South Florida, so a lot of Dolphin fans are watching. I'm not one of those that's really buying much into Ryan Tannehill. I think he's done an awesome job of complimenting Derrick Henry, and I think that's what he is. I think he's kind of that guy that can compliment, not elevate people. But I'm just wondering, you're probably not a Dolphin. You're probably not living in South Florida. So from an outsider's point of view, how do you view Tannehill's accomplishments this year?
I think what we're seeing this year is kind of what people were hoping they would get out of the Dolphins would get out of him when they took him in the first round out of A&M. You are right in that he is playing very good complementary football, off of the running game with Derrick Henry. I think he's playing very free. I think he's got a really talented wide receiver in A.J. Brown, who I think is a budding star in this league. And, I think I was saying earlier, Arthur Smith is doing a phenomenal job as the Titans offensive coordinator. They're a very fun watch, and Tannehill has certainly taken the Titans offense to a level that Marcus Mariota could never do. I don't think that in the Titans' 2 playoff wins that Tannehill's really been a huge reason that they've advanced. If it comes down to him having to hold his own against Patrick Mahomes, it's not going to happen. If he were to face Aaron Rodgers, it's probably not going to happen. Maybe against Jimmy Garoppolo, but he looked really good last week or on Saturday versus the Vikings. But I just think that it seems to be working right now for Tannehill. I'm not sure how much longer he's going to keep this up, but it is good to see him play pretty well right now.
It definitely is good because he's a good kid overall. Niners and Vikings. How surprised were you that the Vikings were that dominated in that game?
You could just tell right away it was not going to happen. I thought that the Vikings would match up decently with the 49ers. I think the Vikings have a very deep and complete football team, much like the 49ers. But I think it's just hard to carry momentum from having such a huge road upset over the Saints and then go into Levi Stadium. It's just hard to sustain that. But I think the biggest thing was, I think Kevin Stefanski knew he was going to be the Browns head coach when that game was going on. So, it's kind of hard to be focused on the task at hand with, your bigger opportunity coming up, within the next day or so. I mean, they only got 6 first downs. I mean, you got to give the 49ers defense a lot of credit. Nick Bosa, Eric Armstead, DeForest Buckner, they just ate the Vikings offensive line alive. It was a really good season for the Vikings, but, it stinks that it ended this way. But, I thought I was expecting a closer game than what we got on Saturday.
John, so what do you think the Niners are going to do to the Packers here? How can the Packers overcome this? Because I have a hard time seeing that. Even with Aaron Rodgers, that defense is just absolutely brutal.
Just Aaron Rodgers having one of his greatest games. I think, he probably wants to avenge his worst game of his career, which I think happened on November 25th when the Packers got destroyed by the Niners. This is the team he grew up rooting for. He's a Northern California kid. He went to Cal. The 49ers could have drafted him number 1 overall, but they went with Alex Smith instead. So this is clearly personal for him. And then, from the coaching matchup, either Kyle Shanahan or Matt LaFleur are going to be leading their team to the Super Bowl. Like I said before, they've worked together at 3 different stops, with the Texans, with the Redskins, and with the Falcons. And I think LaFleur has done very well this year, but he's kind of always been in Shanahan and Sean McVay's shadow. This is an opportunity for him to, one up his coaching buddy. Do I think the Packers are going to win in Santa Clara? No, just because I don't think they're complete enough. I think they're a tad too finesse. But this is Aaron Rodgers, and if he doesn't have this many opportunities left to get to a Super Bowl, so I expect a tremendous performance out of him and nothing less of that.
All right, and I would imagine you already kind of gave me the answer. You got Chiefs all the way, right? Because you're not expecting Ryan to keep up, and it's going to be tough for Derrick Henry to keep up with that offense too.
I'm actually leaning the 49ers over the Chiefs. I just think that
you mean Titans over the Chiefs? You are?
Oh, Titans over the Chiefs?
I'm not talking about I'm not talking about the Super Bowl. I'm talking about Titans and Chiefs. Okay. Just Titans. You already got us in a Super Bowl, my man. Now, just Titans and Chiefs. Do you give the Titans? How do they win this one? Let's put it that way. Let's put it that way instead, because we know that Ryan can't hang with Mahomes. So, how is it that the Titans are going to win this game if they can, in your eyes?
They just go in there and they run the ball down Kansas City's throat. Chiefs do not have a good run defense. The pass defense has improved, and as has the pass rush under Steve Spagnuolo. I think the big thing is this was a huge emotional win for Chiefs Kingdom yesterday. The Titans are coming off the extra day of rest. It was never really in doubt that they were going to lose to Baltimore, once they kind of got going pretty early. But I think the big key here is, for some strange reason, Andy Reid gets his teeth kicked in when he plays the Titans. I believe he's 1-9 all time against the Titans. They lost earlier this season in Nashville. Granted, it was by a field goal, but I think the Titans they're playing very consistent football right now. I mean, I think it's a lot to ask for a number 6 seed to win 3 straight road playoff games to get to the Super Bowl, but they're doing something really, really special right now, and I'm not ruling it out, although I do think that Kansas City probably punches its ticket to Miami this year.
Follow him on Twitter at Buhler118. He is John Buhler for Fansided. John, thank you for taking some time, my man. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on today.
You got it, my man. You be good out there.